Hello and welcome to another instructional video about the MiSTer FPGA system. I hope you're all doing well. Today we are going to talk about the MT-32 Pi system and what it is, what it does, how it works, how you get one. This is actually sort of a separate physical device that you can add on and use in conjunction with your MiSTer or other things. And we're going to go through how it works, but in particular with the MiSTer. Now, before I get too involved and forget, I would like to remind you to like and subscribe, and click the notification bell and comment and all that fun stuff. Share it with others if you like. The main reason I ask for that is that it helps other people who are also interested in this. It increases the visibility of it so that other people who are also interested in it, have the opportunity to see it. That's all I'm looking for here. Anyway, let's get on with the project. Okay, so what is an MT-32, or what is an MT-32 Pi? An MT-32 Pi is a device that has been made to emulate an MT-32, and we'll get into how that works in a bit. But let me just tell you a little bit about the MT-32. This is a Roland MT-32, which came out in 1987. And from doing a little research online, I see that it's reported to have been it was $695 originally in 1987, which is a lot of money. It's like, um, as of the time of this recording in 2026, it was like $1,800 to $2,000 in today's money. So quite a lot of money. Not something that most people, most average people could afford that had computers and things like that. High-end stuff. Ended up being actually a high-end thing versus what other options we had in 1987, where we had just the PC speaker, which is basically just little bleeps and bloops because it would take too much CPU processing to make anything more fancy than that. Although it being a speaker, you could, if you had like the equivalent of like a wave file type thing, you could put that out to it and it would output that, but they take up so much space, right? Maybe 10 megs for like 1 minute, and we're talking about stuff where you only had like 300K on a 300, maybe 800, I think, on the double density, 5 1/4 floppies, because this was 87. So not very big, not a lot of space, right? And then MP3s came along. I forget exactly when, but by comparison, an MP3 is about 1 meg for a minute. And as you get in later into the 90s, when you have the 3 1/4 inch diskettes, no, 3.5 inch diskettes, you have those, and you could store 1.44 megabytes on it. So that still is just like, you get 1 minute, and that's a big chunk of your disk if you were trying to use MP3 music. So what did you do? You got your bleeps and bloops on your PC speaker, but you want something better than that, right? That doesn't take up a lot of space. So what you have is you make a device that outputs certain sounds based on like instructions you tell it, and then the disk just has instructions, which is maybe a few K for like all the music on the whole thing, and then the device is programmed, and it knows, it's a specialized chip that knows, what sounds to play on it. So we had FM synth that came out, which is what the AdLib had with the Yamaha OPL 2 and 3 chips. It was FM synth, and then you had the Soundblaster also did FM synth, but it had sample stuff, so you could do sound effects and stuff that sounded really good with samples. That was a little bit better because it combined those two things. And then you had the Roland MT-32, which made really, really awesome music, but it didn't have good, it didn't do like sound effects or any of that stuff. It was just music only, and it was a separate device that plugged. You'd have to connect up. You'd have to have the right. You'd have to have like something that was compatible with MIDI in your computer. Like a MIDI card to connect it up and all that, to control it. And then it had a separate output for the audio, as opposed to a sound card. You just plug in like a small 3.5 millimeter cable or something like that, and hook it up to your speakers. Depends on the system you have, but it was the small one because it had to fit in a slot in your PC. So what they are is the MT-32 has like these sound banks of sounds, and instead of doing FM synthesis, it is a different kind of synthesis where it has it has sampled sounds, and then it does some fancy math, proprietary math to make them sound different and things like that. And then, you can change the pitch and whatever. And it just sends those, the MIDI stuff just sends those instructions over. And MIDI stands for Musical Instrument Digital Interface. This was MIDI wasn't really proprietary, but the Roland system was. And then later on, after that, in the early '90s, early to mid '90s, we got general MIDI, and that was not proprietary because it was general, and they had sort of an agreement, and so anything that was MIDI compatible would use this sort of general format, uh, which also we can use, and I'll show you that in a little bit too. So that's basically what it was. It was it was really expensive, fancy, high end. By comparison, like Soundblaster was maybe $240, and an ad lib was like $175. So much more reasonable. But that's what it did. But there were games, that were made for it, especially Sierra made a lot of games that used the Roland MT-32, and that's what they were. What I said, it's targeted for it, right? So it was composed and it was meant for those systems, and therefore, if you want to listen to it as it was like, originally conceived and intended, it'd be nice to have one of these, and you can have it, and it has beautiful sound on it, and you'll see later. I have examples of what it sounds like, and I do some comparisons between the uh, ad-lib version, I believe. Yes, the ad-lib version and the MT-32, so you can get an idea, of what it was like and why it's different and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, just this device. Okay, so now that we know what a Roland MT-32 is and why it's kind of neat and we'd like to use it and so on, and we'll show you further examples so you can actually hear the sound, the sound differences. But why do we need a separate device, the MT-32 Pi? Why can't we just emulate it on the MiSTer? Can it do stuff with FPGA chips and all that stuff? Well, not really, because if you're loading a core, you'd have to actually program the MT-32 into the core as well. So it'd have to be part of that core. And depending on what core you've got, maybe there's not a lot of space for it, or it's just an extra thing. And we can create this MT-32 Pi pretty low cost, relatively speaking. So it's not too bad. So it's kind of like the old days where you had to have a separate device. The other thing is you can actually use the MT-32 Pi with other stuff. You don't have to use it with a MiSTer. You can use it if you're really into uh, MIDI music and MT-32 in particular type music. You can use that and find music or compose music or do all that sort of stuff if you're into it. So it's very useful in for additional things outside of just the MiSTer, if that's what you're interested in. But um, there is it can also be emulated in the MiSTer's ARM processor, which is a little bit too slow to emulate the MT-32 properly. So you get like laggy notes and hanging notes and stuff like that, and it just does not sound right. I have an example of that to show you as well, just so you can see and why you have to use this separate device. Well, you don't have to, but why you should, or why you'd want to use this separate device to get the sounds. It does do general MIDI fine. So if that's all you are interested in, you could do the general MIDI setup, and I'll have a thing showing how to set that up for the general MIDI if you want, and I'll show you how to set up the general MIDI on the MT-32 Pi. It's just using FluidSynth instead of the month thing, and that's it. And that's how you do it. Now, with the MT-32 Pi, how do you get one? How do you make one, create, build it, whatever? Because if you want to use it, right? Well, first of all, you need a Raspberry Pi, at least a 3. You can use a 3B. 3B is good. 3A plus, I think you can use, but it has some issues, so it's not recommended. I think you can get some. I think there's some alternate files that you need to put on it to reconfigure it, and it works a little bit better, but it's still kind of slow. You can't, like 2 is too slow. That's the same problem with the MiSTer that you have. You can get the Raspberry Pi 02W. W is the wireless one. You can get one of those, and it's nice and it's small and will fit in, and that's what they recommend you use with this, with an adapter. There's an adapter device that gives you a few little things, a few little extra things, like, because see, there's this, you know, you have this knob here, and you have these buttons, and you have this LCD screen. So there are those that come with in MT-32 little. This is just full-on MT-32 emulator, and it has like in and out and all that sort of stuff, which you don't need with the MiSTer. You just need a USB 3.0 A2A cable, and I'll tell you how to plug that up when we how to connect that when we get to that point. And that's all you need for the in and out, because the Pi and the MiSTer can communicate that way. And then here's your out, and you don't even need you don't even need to use the separate audio out on it, because the MiSTer will take that signal and spit it out. So this is one you could buy. Well, this says sold out, but this is an example of something you could buy, which is fancy, enhanced for musicians, etc., etc. It's sold out, but it's $130. I've seen ones priced at like 200, things like that, that are, you know, are really fancy and have everything in it. This is a bit overkill for what you need with the MiSTer anyway. So I would recommend, if you're just interested in doing it with the MiSTer, I wouldn't go for one of these. You can get it much, much cheaper. You want to get one of these. Now this has a button. This has 2 buttons. I think this is currently available. It's from the UK, so it's roughly £30 plus whatever shipping and stuff like that are probably added after, as usual. But and it depends where you're at. So that might be a little bit expensive if you're in the US, like I am. But this works, and you still have to get the Pi separately. This is just the hat that allows you to connect. It has the proper configurations that allows you to connect to the MiSTer FPGA, which you have to already have an I/O board, and then you connect to the Raspberry 3 or the W2, and it's, you know, intended for use, of course, supporting external MIDI hardware, like it says right here. And then also with these, a lot of times they recommend you getting especially with these, they're powered by the MiSTer, so you need to get a little bit better power supply, so that has enough like oomph, you know, to use it. The big core that you want to use this is the AO486, the PC one, and that's one that's probably, you know, would have trouble having, you know, built in to the core to add that. Plus, there are some ROMs that you need that are still proprietary copyright ROMs by Roland, so I cannot tell you where to get those. You have to get those on your own for it. I will show you where to put them in the files. You know, I'll show you where to put them, but I can't tell you where to get them. So that's another thing, that it couldn't be put into the core for that. You know, you have to go get those ROMs, but there'd be a way, you know, for it to be there. But you don't want it there and then trying to use it and then not having the ROMs, and then your sound doesn't work and you don't know why, that sort of thing. But you can use it with the Mini-Mig, which is the Amiga core, Atari ST, and the Sharp X68000 cores. I will show off all of those. Yeah, so the add-on hat allows you to listen to things. Let's see. I want to see if I have a B plus Raspberry Pi 3 that I use it with. So that's what's going to be in my examples. That's what I'm going to be using. I don't have the other one, but they're good. Let's see. It is compatible with these. Yeah, it's compatible with all of these because it's external for the most part, as long as you have the right adapter for it. You do need, for this one, you do need the I/O board for it to work, because that's where you get the port that it connects into. If you don't have an I/O board, you can connect it directly to the GPIO pin, so I can show you that pinout. It does get complicated. There are several options, but the recommended option, the easiest, simplest option, is this. If you have a MiSTer with an I/O board, and either the digital or the analog one, it has this user port on the side that is not actually USB, but it's a USB type port, but it's not USB protocol that goes over it. Um, that works best with this. It's the simplest, straightforward. It costs a little bit more than doing it yourself, but it's if it's easy, right? So if you want easy, not super expensive, but still, this is like $40-ish in US. So if you want something that's not super expensive, but it's still it's not $130. It's less, but you still have to get the Pi with it, which is like $15 or something. Have to look it up. So I should probably do that. 1 second. Okay, so for example, this is from Adafruit. The Raspberry Pi 3 Model B Plus. This thing is $54. Although I've seen other ones that were like recommended retail prices like 35, something like that. I still remember paying like 35 for mine. They said they'd be in production until 2030 on these. You could get like a 4 or a 5 or something like that probably too, and it would still work. And yeah, the B Plus is the one I have. Looks like this. There are a couple different models, so maybe I got one with like less RAM on it or something like that. But that's an example of it and the price, and then the W2 or the W2, yeah. So let me look that one up real quick. Hold on. Okay, so the Raspberry Pi 02W here is approximately $20 out of stock though, but this is the other one you would want, and it would be less than the other one if you could find it. Maybe one of the other distributors has it. It's manufactured in the UK. You don't want to get this one. That is not the right one. You want this Raspberry Pi 02W. Just taking a little quick look to see if there's anything else. Nah, I don't see anything. Don't see anything else similar that might be with it. But it's $20, $15, something like that. I think I saw a retail price suggested 10, but prices vary due to market factors. But that gives you a good idea of what. So let's say it's $20, and then the other thing's like 40. So that's like $60. Plus you got to get a power supply for it, or a better power supply for your MiSTer if you don't already have one. So that's like another $20. So it's ended up getting like, let's see, 60, maybe $80. For all the parts. That's cheaper. That's still cheaper than 130 or 200, right? So that's why this is probably the best if you're looking for something that's easy and simple to do. That's probably the best, and you do get the extra stuff here. Let me get to the right page. You get the, this is the one. This is a similar one. Well, let me just show you what it looks like. You get all this, and you get the buttons and the LCD screen and all that fun stuff. Now you don't necessarily need all that if you already have a Pi around with a power supply. You can use its separate power supply if you want, or if you're not using like the LCD or OLED or whatever kind of screen this is, and buttons and all the fancy stuff on it, it doesn't quite require as much power, so you might get away without using the upgraded power supply. That's one of those you'll have to try it yourself, because I don't have several different examples. I did try using it with the existing power supply. It did seem to power up, but I just wanted to run it on its own power supply for my purposes, just because I had one already, so I didn't have to worry, and it wasn't the upgraded one, so I didn't have to worry about it powering up in it. So it has powered up from my MiSTer before, and it does seem to work. But again, I don't have all this fancy stuff on mine. I did it very simple by hand, which I will show you also. And then this is basically the same thing. It's a little different because it doesn't have the buttons and what have you, but it's very simple. It has this little display on it, and it has this connectors, and I'll send you links to all these. And then this is what it looks like when you put it on the MiSTer, and you have the Pi in here. This is a full-on like B plus, 3B plus or whatever, and it's got a couple of ports. It has, I guess it's got a USB one and then like an HDMI one, which is digital, but it still goes in the same user port here. The only thing is that's the same port you would use for the snack. So you would have to change this out, like if you wanted to use SNES thing, and you had like a snack adapter for original SNES controllers, and you wanted to use that, then you probably want to unplug this. But you don't need this for the SNES anyway, so it's fine. Yeah, let me show you. Yeah, this is what they look like. This one is the mounting bracket. Maybe it has something in here because it's not sticking out. Maybe it has the 0 in it. This one definitely has the yeah, it had PCB shim for 0 2. And it does come with the A to A cable, the 3.0 a USB 3.0. And this is the B in here. So yeah, it's pretty neat. Compatible with 3B, Pi 4. There's a Pi 5 now, which it's probably compatible with as well. So those are options. Depends on what you want, what you have, you know, that sort of thing. Obviously, as a sort of computer hobbyist myself, I already have Pi 3, so that's what I used to do it. And I will show you how to do it. This one is still in stock. This is from MiSTer Add-ons, which I guess is in the US, $30. So, you know, 30 plus whatever. It's a little bit less. It'd be like $70 maybe. Oh, it says back in stock soon. So it's not in stock either. So, you know, getting those, maybe rough, but when they're available, you get them. You have to wait, you know, be patient. Or, you know, get one on eBay. It might be a little bit more, that sort of thing. So you kind of do have to shop around to get a good to get the setup that you want. Now there's another couple ways to do it. Like I did, I have a Raspberry Pi myself, and I use my already existing separate power supply. Now that does require, you know, doesn't necessarily actually require two outlets because you can have a USB hub that supplies power to both, right? Although the actually no, the MiSTer uses a barrel jack, and it's not USB. It's more power than that, than normal USB. Although I'm not gonna get into it, but you know, USB 3.0 can deliver more, but you know, the voltages and things, voltages should be like 5. I think it's more current. Anyway, it's got its own adapter, so you need an outlet for that, and then you need an outlet for, you know, your USB power supply to convert, you know, the main power supply in your building to USB, and then the USB to the Raspberry Pi. So if you have all that already, which I do, it doesn't cost anything extra. And all you need, if you don't have an I/O board, you can actually connect the Pi directly to it with DuPont jumpers, and just buy the jumpers and connect them up. And with that, you would use this page to get the pinout. And there's also the pinout for the user port as well, which I used. And the Raspberry Pi directly to the DE10 Nano. You have to look up what pin numbers these are on the DE10 Nano, but with the DE10 Nano like instructions. And then the Raspberry Pi pins here, you just connect them directly with the jumpers if you don't have an I/O board. If you have an I/O board and you want to keep it on there, don't want to take it off, which if you had one you wouldn't want to, then you have to get the USB, and then you the USB A2A cable, USB 3.0 A2A cable, and then you'd have to get a jumper board, which I got, and so I'll put a link in the description as to what sort of jumper board I got, and then you just connect those with the DuPont wires to the Raspberry Pi, and that's all you need. I was trying to do it with a DAC, you know, digital analog converter, and all that stuff, and it didn't work quite right, and the sound wasn't good, and I got it connected, and I finally got it, and I got the sound working, but it was still like not good. It was like crackly and all this stuff, and then I realized because I looked closer at these, and I'm like, wait a minute, these don't have it. Like, there's no audio out on these. And I read up on the instructions, and this is one of the reasons I'm doing this video, is because there's instructions there's a lot of words to read and figure out what, you know, applies. And yeah, there's no audio cable. You can see this board It's just the USB-C cable. You want a short one. You want one that is like a foot or 30 centimeters. Those are approximately the same. Mine's about that, and with a little bit more because of the male plugs on the end. It extends out, but the actual cable part's about a foot, which is slightly more than 30 centimeters. So it's roughly that length. You don't really want anything more. You could probably get away with a foot and a half if you had to, but shorter the better, because the way the protocol works. And yeah, so I figured out that I didn't even need the DAC and all that stuff. I'll show you the DACs if you're interested in getting one for using it separately from the MiSTer. So I'll just show it to you briefly. I'm not even gonna show you like I did solder mine up and do all the fun stuff like that. I'll just show you a picture of what it looks like. That's on the MT-32 Pi page, and that should be enough for that. And then you connect so yeah, so you don't need that. Then you connect the pins on the Pi to the breakout board to the USB 3.0, USB 3.0 to the user I/O on your I/O board, and that's it. And power up as needed when you get to that. That is if you already have if you have it and you don't want, like, if you don't want to get this because that's another $30 and you just want to use the Pi, you can get the Pi and the power supply if you want to get a separate Pi power supply, or if you want, if you already have USB stuff laying around that will work for it, great, use that. Or if you want to get the additional, better power supply for the MiSTer that works better, that can supply power to both, you can do that too. Or you can do that. That's another option you could use. And then the Pi itself, you just connect that up like I did with the cable. And you're foregoing like the fancy stuff with the LCD, but you're saving a little bit of money. And yeah, you have to use some jumpers and get these other parts and put them on. I will leave links in the description as to what those are, and I'll gonna have some pictures in a bit here to show you, what it looks like, how to connect them up, that sort of thing. And if you're not against doing a little bit of legwork to save some money, you can do that, and that's great. And that's what I did. And if you don't even have the I/O board, you don't even need the USB cable or the breakout board for it. You can just use the DuPont jumper straight. So let me get into showing you that and how those things connect up. So if you get this, real simple, just connect it, boom, there, you get your power supply, you're good. Yeah, that's it for that. And then your Pi, you can have you don't want a separate power supply for the Pi if you get one of these, because this is already designed to work that way. So you want to get your upgraded power supply for your MiSTer on those. If you're not doing the powering it through the MiSTer, then you have there's the one the pin that supplies the voltage you don't want to connect, which that'll already be connected here. So that's the thing you got to do for that. I know it's kind of complicated. So I don't know the best way to explain it simply. So you're just going to have to suffer and write it down, I guess. But yeah, so any of these that come with are going to have that already. So you'll need that power supply. But if you're trying to save money and you have an existing one, you do like what I do and you take that out. So what does that look like? You need these pinouts. And let me just pull up a picture of the breakout. Okay, so here's what it looks like. This is the one I got, and it was a 2-pack, so I did actually get 2 of them, but I only needed 1. And one of these pins here, I think as you're looking, I think this is like pin 1. If you look on the back of it, it'll be square, and all the other ones will be round, right, on the back of it. So it's 1, and it's actually a double row. These are all common together, so it's 1 through 10, and that's how it's numbered. So you want to compare over to here, and there's USB, there's your 1 through 9. And then 10 is actually like the sort of, it's the ground plane. It attaches to, it connects to this part right here, this sort of, the housing, or whatever you want to call it. So those are the pins in the 1 through 9, or 1 through 10, so that you can know what to put on. And then you would not include this 5-volt one if you were using your own power supply for it. If you're using a separate power supply, one for the Pi, if you want to power it through the MiSTer, then that's what that's for. And you just, connect these appropriately. Now, if you want to know what these pins are on the Raspberry Pi, there's a diagram right here. Here's the pins. Again, pin 1 is the square one, and it shows you what they are and the numbers. So you just look at these little numbers here on this, and these numbers here, as far as where to put the pins in these numbers here. So that's that. And then there's the DE10 Nano. You'll have to look up DE10 Nano as to how that is. I think it's in the instructions for the DE10 Nano itself. Although if you have a MiSTer that didn't come with DE10 Nano instructions, let me see. Here's the manual right here. So there's the link to the manual. Let me just click that, make sure it works. Yeah. User's board manual. Print email. So I guess you click there and it'll email it to you. It's an updated one, and it'll tell you what these pins are. It's the same deal. Not these. Like these pins here, I think, are the ones you got to connect to. You would just connect directly to those if you wanted to do that for the pin positions, and that's it. That's what you do. And then these are this is the wire colors you can use. These are the standard ones. You can use whatever you want, but if you use the standard ones, that'll be standard. I don't think I did. I think I just grabbed, one was like the first one on the thing. 2 was the second one on the thing. I don't think I did it for the proper color. But that's I don't think there's anything else I need to tell you about that stuff with the pinout and all that. I just need to make sure to leave the links in there, and that's it. Just give you the links for the stuff. You have to decide on your own if you want to try to be, if you're a little more I don't want to say handy, but if you're a little more hands-on, and you want to connect this up yourself, as I did, because I was just being cheap and didn't want to, since I already had a Raspberry Pi, I didn't want to spend another, $30, $40, and it was out of stock anyway. I was able to get these parts. I had to get, I spent a little extra with the DAC that I didn't actually need. Let me just see if I can pull that up here, because I just want to show you the one I did get, and it's a pretty good DAC. Let's see, it's over here. There it is, DAC support. And then we will go to this one, I think is the one I got. Yeah, so I got this one. That's what I got. Not that what I had matters, but there's instructions. You can find it. It works. I can tell you that much, that it does work. So if you want to go the route and you need a DAC, this one will work. And it was like, it came with the pins. You had to solder them on. You did have to do these soldering things. You had to solder the pins in, but it came with a pin thing. Just snap it at the right point, put them in, do the soldering if you're familiar with soldering, and you got yourself a DAC, which you could use for whatever you want. You don't even have to use it with this project, but this is how you do it with this project. It's if you're interested in electronics and audio and things like that, might be something worth looking at. It might not. So that's that. Now, how do we set up the MT-32 Pi, right, with the configuration? So let me go in on that. Hold on. Okay, so here is the SD card that I used, and it has all these things in it, and you have to format it. I called it MT-32, so I knew that that's what it was for, and reformat it. It is a little tricky because the one I have is 128 gig, and Windows doesn't want to format anything larger than 32 gig to be FAT32. So you have to go through the instructions here, which I'm not gonna tell you about because where is it here? Quick switch start guide. 32 SD card preparation. It's a little tricky. If you do it wrong, you can erase your hard drive. So I don't want to tell you how to do that and have you get mad at me or something like that, or have it accidental. If you're super comfortable, follow these instructions. I did it and it worked. I think I used the disk part thing and selected the correct disk. I don't remember what my disk number was. Be very, very careful on that. And then I did this and formatted and copied the files over, which if we go back to the quick start guide, we can look at that. And yeah, there's the wiki page which I just showed you. For MT32 support, you copy the MT32 or CM32 ROMs to the ROMs directory. You have to provide these for copyright reasons. Same deal here. I will not be providing those either. Now, let me get that page up. Let me get that. All right, so here it is, and those go in here in the ROMs, and I just dumped them all right here. Place ROMs here.txt, so I just dumped them all here. I don't think I put any sound fonts in here. Oh, it just came with these, I think, already. I did not put these. I think these came with. But if you want more sound fonts, you put them here. These is general MIDI. I don't think I had any firmware. Yeah, that all I think came with. And here's some documents. So if you want to read those, you can read those. But you unzip it. There's a package that you get for it. You unzip it, you put them all there, and then you go find the ROMs and you put them in here. I don't know if you need all these, but it helps. It worked. So that's what it did. You can go online and find ROM sets that indicate that they are for this purpose for the MT32 Pi. And that's all you need. Once you get it there, get in there, put it in your Pi, everything should work. There is then you got to do the config file. So let's go through that. Yes, this is it, the mt32pi.cfg file, where you have to set some things, okay? So we're going to go into the MiSTer setup section here and take a look at those. And here they are. Audio, you have to set the output device to I2S. In their control, you have to set the scheme to simple buttons, which is required for physical buttons. If you don't have a physical buttons, you don't have to set this, but it doesn't hurt if you do. You have to set MiSTer to on so that you can control it through the on-screen display on the MiSTer itself. And so you want that, even if there isn't like an LCD device on your hat. Oh yeah, for the LCD, this is required for the OSD, LCD on, and LCD auto modes, even if you don't have a real OLED display connected. So you put that, you set that, type to that under LCD, and then height is 64. I guess you could do either 32 or 64. 32 is the default, but I just changed it to 64 because that's what it said here. And there are hints. It's a very good config file. I'll show you it again. It tells you where the asterisk is. That's what the default is. So all these sort of things that you set on here. But it's just those that you have to change for the Pi. Or for the MiSTer, I mean, for using the MT32 Pi with the MiSTer. So yeah, there are some concerns and there's some recommendations about getting a certain power supply. If you look on some of those pages where they sell some things and that, they tell you which one to get on there. I don't have one, so I can't say for sure, like, this one's good because I've used it, because I haven't used it. But this is the one, the Meanwell GST25B05-P1J is the one they recommend. So I would go there. So I'll link this, I'll link that. There's the wiki page. I'll link the main one. I'll link all the stuff in the description. Well, not that picture, but I'll link all the stuff in the description for the sites and stuff like that. And if you don't see something in the description that I said I would link, just let me know and I'll fix it. But I think I'll have everything there. There's a lot of stuff on this to link up, so it's going to be complicated for me. So bear with me, and hopefully this helps you and gives you some stuff. So that's where you put the files. You connect it up physically, which I've already described how to do. So I don't think there's anything else. Once you configure the config file, you put that in your Pi and you're good to go. You can leave the Pi off. You can start up the core. You don't want to start up the game, but you can start up the core and then turn the Pi on, or you can as long as the MiSTer's on, you can turn the Pi on and it's fine. And then turn on the, then start the core and it'll be there. So, and you'll see that in just a moment when I go through that. So that should be it for this section. So we'll get on to the next section. Okay, so on the MiSTer here, we're going to check out some DOS games, or maybe just one. I'm going to go on the Silpheed. And I'm going to do the non-MT-32 just so that you can hear what it sounds like for comparison. I think this is Soundblaster. All right, let's go to the other one. All right, let me just show you real quick here with the MT-32 Pi turned on. You get this extra little MT-32 Pi one in cores that support it, and you can control things in here, which we will get to in a moment. A little bit different, huh? So that's what's neat about the MT-32. You get this really nice music. Let's go into the game a little bit.
I am Zakalite, Emperor of the Universe. You will never destroy me as long as I have Gloar.
Now his voice is the same in either version. Sound effects are the same. Well, it's using Soundblaster for the sound effects. There's your music. So it's pretty neat. Now to get out of this, it's Shift X. And the reason I want to do this is because I want to show you how to set this up, because I don't remember if I did this in my other video, and it's relevant here anyway if you're going to set your own up. If you go look at my AO 486 video as to how I set up the Silpheed one, because that didn't come with the 0 megahertz thing. You just make a copy of it and then call that image, MT-32, and set it up the same way as I showed you with the other one, but with MT-32 instead of the other stuff. But you got to do this install, right? Let's see. /P, that way it'll pause when it gets in. When you want, there's an install, I think it's, install.exe, right? So install, and this, well, it walks you through it. It says, only if you set it up correctly. So we're going to set this, since we're using the Roland MT-32. Now I've already set this, but I'm just going to show you, I'm just showing you how to do it. So you set that, and then Soundblaster samples is what we had. And then make sure you set the IBM compatible joystick to on or to yes. And there you go. You do not want to do this this copying here, because the way it's set up, it won't work. And you don't need to, it's already there. It's so all you're doing is configuring the settings. So hit escape here. It'll break stuff if you don't, and that's it. And it's set up. And you could actually you could run it again from here, if you wanted. Where's the start? Read me, run game. So it'd probably just run game, I think is what it does. Yeah. And we're back here, and this is nothing new from what you've seen already. So that's Silpheed. Okay, so now I'm going to show you Doom. Now the thing with Doom is it uses general MIDI and not MT-32. Actually, let's scroll down here to Doom. And yeah, there's the MT-32 Pi, and you have to come over here and change it to FluidSynth, which I did slightly earlier. And that will do general MIDI. Now, this is the default that comes with the 0 megahertz. And it's not configured for MIDI initially, so we have to set that up. And here's how you do that. I'm going to quit. Go into DOS. And you have to do this, like if you want to, and the other games that have MIDI, like Duke 3D is one that has MIDI, and you have to set it up. I don't know any others off the top of my head, but I know this one and that game are ones that you have to do this to if you want to use the MIDI. All right, so now we're going to go dir/p, so it'll pause there for us and look up, and I think it's FD setup. See right there. So we're just going to finish scrolling through that, and then we're going to go to FD setup. Okay, and we're going to choose the music sound card, and Soundblaster is the default. That's the way it was set, or when I say default, that's the way it came, right? In the settings. So we got to go up here to general MIDI, select that MIDI port 330, and then save parameters and launch FastDoom, and then you're done with that. It'll stay. It'll keep the setting. that should sound. And that's, you know, that's your typical, that's what's with your MIDI. General MIDI, and that's the way it's supposed to sound. It's a little bit quiet. I could turn it up though. You know, you might want it like that. Now there's some fun things you can do. If you don't have your MIDI, you know, your MT-32 Pi, if you don't have it turned on already before you start this, it doesn't get properly initialized. So I just turned it off and back on. And it plays music piano notes. So, you know, you don't want to do that. But that's the default. It will cycle back around and then kick into the correct guitar tones. See? But it's really funny, you know, that's piano. Okay, now there's some other things I want to show you here on this. Let me do a quick. So here is the MiSTer and my nice anime otaku wallpaper from the PCN Pixel Cherry Ninja Wallpaper Challenge with my name on it. You know, for the sharp 68,000. All right, so let me just. I'm gonna change this over to. Yeah, this is not how it's supposed to sound. But I'm gonna reboot just to. So it'll properly initialize, but it'll still be wrong because it'll be the wrong mode. Just so you can hear what that sounds like. Okay, so let's try it with let's try it with the MT-32 set. Let me just make sure it's booting. All right, yeah, that's better. Yeah, you're okay. MT-32 Pi, and yeah, go back to month. Okay, see, it's not supposed to sound like that. So this is the importance of getting the mode set correctly, okay? You see that's not right. So yeah, that's why you don't want MT-32 for something that's supposed to be general MIDI, because it sounds wrong. You know, not the right way to do stuff. All right. And before your ears are like, you know, not happy too much. Yeah, see if you switch it in the middle, it doesn't initialize correctly. Now it's a completely different instrument. It should come back around though, like it did before. But it might not. You know, it just gets confused. Not slightly louder. So that's the importance of, you know, configuring it correctly and setting it up correctly. There, it finally came around. That's what it's supposed to sound. Okay, so now there is one other thing that I will show you here. Let's do this. Let's turn this off. Let's put this back. Let's actually put it back to month because that's how we like it. For the most part, we're going to be using that. There is another way you can do this, and I'm going to show you. You actually can set this up. This is built into the MiSTer. Now you have to do, if you're going to do month and all, you have to put in the states that default ST55. I installed that. I don't know if you have to, but you might want to install that. And that would go in the sound fonts directory. We also can put the MT-32 ROMs in here, in this directory. Which, if you want to see where the whole path is, this is under your FAT section or your SD card, depending on how you're viewing it. Like if you're viewing it in MiSTer Companion's SD card, and then you know it's all this where where your games directory is and all that. You know I've showed you in other videos, so you should know from those. And then Linux, and then here's where and you can put the MT-32 ROMs in here as well. Although you can't see them because it's not a sound font. It finally loaded up correctly. Yeah, see, I reloaded the sound font, so it picked up the piano. But you could do that, and then if you initialize it correctly, and it sounds the same because it's doing the same thing, but it's using the Linux system on the MiSTer to do it. The problem is the MiSTer, the ARM CPU is not that high end. In fact, the Pi 3 can just barely do this. The 3A has issues. The 2 just can't do it. So you could try to do the month stuff, but it doesn't quite work. And now I can show you that again with Silpheed, just to give you an example. And that's the other reason why people get this external device instead of using the MiSTer itself. But you can do the MIDI mode if you want, if you don't have one. And I don't know if it's worth doing that in a separate video or not, though. All right, so let's just reset. Just reboot. I didn't save the settings, so it'll go back to MT-32 when I do this. But let's see. I'm gonna go back to Silpheed, MT-32. Yeah, see, it went back to the other mode we had. We're gonna turn the UART mode on, or the MIDI, right? And we're gonna do the month, and we're gonna save that, and we're gonna make sure that this is set to not use, just to not confuse stuff. Yeah, it is powered on, so that's a thing. All right. And we're gonna listen to this, and you're gonna hear it'll work, but the sound will not be good. It'll be laggy and stuff. You'll see. Oh yeah, I have to up a little bit. Volume's a thing too. You might have to adjust. Now this doesn't sound so bad yet, but there was a little lag. Not quite right. It's okay. There's a lag. Oh, you can really hear it there. The drum's not in sync at all. Yeah, all right. And you got that example from the earlier bit, so you can compare. Let's go into the game.
I am Zakolite, Emperor of the Universe. You will never destroy me as long as I have Gloar.
Now that should have been the same because that was just the Soundblaster. Okay. It's actually doing better than I expected. Yeah, that's still better than I expected. You know, it's not too bad. You know, if it's all you have, and you don't have the external device, you know, it might be worth it. But it depends on what game and how laggy it is, what it's doing. It's not too bad. Yeah, that's actually better than I expected. Okay. Alright, gonna reboot though. Yeah, we had the hanging up. Alright, let me switch back over to the desktop because I want to show you something here. Just so you know where to put the files. So let me get it brought up. Let me get to the right spot. Okay. I'll flip over. All right. So we have our desktop. This is our you know, SD card or media fat, depending on, you know, how you're mounting it. And we're going to go back into that Linux because I want to show you what's in there in case you do want to do it that way and you don't have the MT-32, which, you know, maybe you're not watching this video because of that, because it's not just regular MIDI or whatever through the system. But I just dumped all the same things here, and then I took this one here, the MT-32, and I made this one the MT-32 control, and then this one I made the MT-32 PCM because I think they have to be named like this. It started working after I did that. I'm not 100% positive that you have to do that, but I think you do. And you just dump them. Other than that, you know, you have them in there. So I may only use these two, but that's what I did. So that's my recommendation if you want to try that. And then the sound fonts is I put this SD55SF2. So you have to go find that because I wanted the sound canvas. Sound font, and that's it. And these are the same, these are the exact same ones that I showed earlier to put into the MT-32 Pi into there. I should have showed it earlier if I didn't. It tells you in the directions on the wiki page for it. So that's it as far as that goes. Now let's switch over and show some more games. So what else have we got? There are 3 other cores that work with MT-32. And let us find those, which are computers. So we have the Amiga. Let's do the Amiga. Now this is an older version of the Amiga Vision that I have here, from last year, 2025. There is a newer version. I have a video on it that I released a little while ago, a few weeks ago. Definitely do yourself a favor and get the newer version of this. I just haven't updated this SD card yet with the newer version, which is very, very nice. It has music and all that sort of cool stuff like that. So we're going to go to, first of all, first thing we're going to do is MT32 Pi. By default, it's off in this in this core, right? So we have the synth is month, so we're good with the month and all that. It's not doing the other one, so that's good. But we'll have to remember to change it. I think when we go back to AO46, I will have to change that back to not the general MIDI one. So let's turn it on, so that way you get to hear the music when we go to it. I'm not going to save the configuration just because, I don't know. Most games don't use it, I guess, so it doesn't really matter. Where's the games? All games by type. All right, so we're going to go to S space Quest, and we are going to listen to the music on it. LMNOP space A space Harrier space Hulk space Quest MT32. See, it even says MT32 enhanced. So this is the one we're going to try. And you see the little checkbox, MT32 sound. That means it's working, and it sees the MT32, and everything's happy, hunky dory, blah blah blah. Everything should be working. See what we get. Takes a little while to load, I think. There you go. Nice music. So that's what you get for MT32. Not a huge, yeah, as the thing sticks. See, sometimes notes stick, right? So that's why you go in here and reset the hanging notes. Because I just jumped out of it. Just want to show you comparatively. Well, that's regular Space Quest. This is enhanced. Let's see, what is this? OCS 5 times NTSC, OCS. I don't know. Not sure what's enhanced by it. Let's do this one since it's similarist or most similar to the one we just did. So you can hear the difference between the MT32 and the sort of regular thing. Now, the Amiga did have good sound in it, like go play Shadow of the Beast and listen to that music and be awed. At least music-wise, it's awesome. You know, you can dig around the gameplay, but I like the game regardless. So, and there are other games, Shadow of the Beast 2, Shadow of the Beast 3, awesome. That have great music and great stuff. So the Amiga had that capability already, so it wasn't as enhanced. But these games, it was easy to port. There was the capability of using it, MT32 with it, so you could do it. But let's go on and listen to this. See, no checkbox on the MT32 sound. This is exactly the same, but with just a slight different config because no MT32. Which, if you don't have one, you can't hear the sound anyway. So you want to hear the sound. So you need to load. It needs to load up, and play different sound, so it needs to be configured correctly. So we can hear stuff. Yeah, it's gonna take a moment. Probably should have skipped these loading scenes. There you go. So not too bad. Not as amazing as other Amiga games, but you know, it's sort of ad-libby, you know, if you're familiar with the ad-lib. So I don't think that's my mouse up in the corner. See? And that's the difference. So this is why I'm showing this off, is so that you can see the difference. And if you want to use the other versions, you know, it's nice. It's nice to add. Now, of course, this game, you can play it on PC, you know. But if you want to play this version, you got it. You know, you got the different versions. You can play it on Amiga, you can play it on whatever. I'm going to show you on different system next. Let me just restart this so I get back to here. And then we are going to go to Atari ST, which is right here. And I have to show you the config on this. This is another one I had to config it. Because by default, the way it came, it did not have the MT-32 configuration, you know, which makes sense because like most people don't have one, most likely. And it's a separate piece. So we'll do that. We'll get into this. If you go watch my Atari ST video, right? If you want to know how this works, how the setup works and all this HD menu and all that stuff. I did that in that video, so we're gonna go watch that video to see how that works. But what I'm gonna do is I'm actually going to, is it escape? No, how's the F1? Yeah, I actually just want to escape to, I should have hit the escape space bar to go to the next page. The sort of menu controls are not what I call not intuitive because they're different than how the MiSTer controls work. So it's very difficult to play to adjust. But they're not bad in and of themselves. It's just different. So it's hard. So Shift F10. We're going to exit to the system, and I will show you the configuration. And this is what are we doing here? We're going to do Space Quest 3. I know I just showed you Space Quest. So we're getting a lot of space questing, but that was the one I used for testing. Let's go down here, space, and it's SQ, I believe. So if you want this one, this is the only one I've done to test it. So if you want this one and you want to play Space Quest 3 and you don't want to play it the way it was configured originally in the image that I referred to you in the Atari ST video. Come on, load. All right. And there is a setup program. I think it's Music PRG is what you want. And you see the MT-32 drivers there. All right, so music. So then you go here, in Music Atari ST 3-voice, options, music device. That's the default that it comes up as. You got Casio CZ synthesizer, want that. Or the Roland MT-32 sound module. So you click that, you click OK. And you just click install game. And that works, and it changes it. You could just launch the game from here by running that start PRG. So I'm going to do that. But normally, you know, if you have the menu, you just go to Space Quest 3 and launch it from there. But you have to do this first. And that'll save it on your hard drive, you know, your virtual hard drive. Come on, double click. And hopefully this will work. Exit key is F8. And I think it's space to go through here. And this is just a sort of a splash screen, so there's no sound. And then it'll come up to another screen describing it. That's all you'd have to do to change the configuration. You can go back and change it back too with the same way and set it to the Atari 3 voice. which I'll do and show you so you can hear that as well. For comparisons, because that's what this is. This is educational. It's going to be a long video. We'll see. We'll see if I split this up, and this is part 2. We'll see. That's MT-32 sound. Pretty nice. Again, if you're not hearing it or something, you need to go here, MT-32.5, make sure that's turned on, and you want this munt. All right, that's that. Now, game exit was F8, so we're gonna hit F8. It's going to drop us back to here because we were in here. We weren't in the menu. But if we were in the menu, we'd hit that Shift F10 to get out of the menu. And let's just go through here. Let's just go through the setup again. All right, music PRG. PRGs are programs in Atari ST. I'm going to try to double click on this. All right, now a music Atari 3 voice. We're going to hit OK. And we are going to install game. So that's just, all that does is just set wherever there's like some sort of config, maybe it's resource config or something like that. It just sets it. I think it can emulate the Casio as well. I think that's the CL one. So if you go here, MT-32 Pi, and you change this to CM32L, that might, you know, change it. It's interesting. You should be able to change the current config, even though they're not changing the default. This is the default setting. I wonder if you can change it through here. I don't know. We'll do that, I guess. Anyway, and back. Didn't see a save button, but that's okay. I'm not going to tweak this really. And we will start, and you'll hear the difference. I think there is a way to launch the menu again from within here as well, but it's just easy to reset too. I believe I show that in my Atari ST video, so do that. I just don't remember off the top of my head. I'll probably give some links. Well, I will give links to those various videos that I mentioned of my own in here because they are relevant. And if I'm able to, I will put a link to the, with the timestamp. Ooh, stereo. I think the other one was stereo too, but different. There's very clear separation of channels. I mean, this doesn't sound bad either. It's just different. So it's whichever you prefer for the most part is really what it is. But if you do like the MT-32, which is very nice for certain games, especially like Silpheed or some of the other ones that were like designed for it, that's what you might want. It's just another little thing to experience. If you have a program, like a MIDI program, and you want to compose stuff or whatever, or just play music, you got that too. So those are those two systems. Let's see. So that's 3 altogether. Let me put this back though. Let me just put this back real quick. Doom. Because I want the MIDI one, because that was the whole point of me setting up the MIDI stuff. If I can click in it. And go back to music PRG. Come on. And it's installed. And that's that. Let's close out. All right, so that's that. Let us go to another system. Computer. Yeah, X68000 games. I tried a few games on this. I tried. What did I try? I tried Gradius 2, or no, Gradius 3, I think it was, has that. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was Gradius 2. Can't remember. I don't remember what happened. And then there was another one that had some lockups. Supposedly it does. I had trouble setting up the trying to get the MIDI to work because the latest stable version of the core doesn't have like the extra buttons that you need, and I don't know if I had the right ones, and I could not get it to work. There's supposedly there's a couple of games that you need to like hit some keys or something to get. I think Gemini Wings 1, I could not get it to work there, and then like Gradius 2, yeah, Gradius 2, those two I could not get to work. This one does work, but it does lock up at one point, so I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you this one because this is just one other. You'll have this is again one. Well, you'll have to do a deep dive on your own, because again, and it's a lot of this in Japanese and stuff, and you know, difficult for me to. But that's MT-32. I don't know if it's supposed to be MT-32 or General MIDI. I'm a little bit confused on that, but there are a couple other games by this company that are like that. And it's definitely going through the MT-32. I can see the light blinking. But it does lock up here, or at least it did. Not right here, but coming up. And I'll play the non-MIDI ones just so you can hear the difference. And there is a UART processing, so you could have the built-in FluidSynth going, or you could use this FluidSynth on the MT-32. I think this is where it locked up. At least it had when I was trying it before. Somewhere in this intro. But it does, I could get into the game if I didn't let it go too long. Now I remember seeing this. Let's see where it locked. Let's see. I think it always did lock up. There. See? It does lock up. But you can reset. I'm going to reset. You can get into it. And actually, I hope it isn't completely locked up. Yeah, there it goes. You actually can get in and play the game, but you can't listen to the whole intro. That's the thing. So that's something to be aware of. I know some of the other games supposedly lock up, but I haven't been able to try them. I heard like Final Fight locks up or something, but I don't see it in the list here. So maybe it's one that just doesn't work very well anyway. Now, if we just skip the intro, you can get into the game. This is one core that is not quite complete too, because of the lockups and things like that. So, but you can get into the game and play
Ready.
with music. So, there you have it. There's that. So there's that game, and we got Castlevania. We got to show that because that's why I had the the wallpaper, right? More to it than that, though. We have three options. One, so we're going to try one first, which is the native 68K. Very crunchy, you know, YM Yamaha synth type stuff. Sounds a little Genesis-y or Mega Drive-y if you prefer. There's an intro. I'm not going to do the whole intro because I'm going to get tired showing all the intros. We'll just do a little of the game here. Oh, yeah, these are the ones that were built into it. So it's like stage 10. It's not started over. It's not started from the beginning. So I think it's Vampire Killer or something. Yeah. It's good. It's... You get to hear Vampire Killer, so it's good. Or Vampire Killer. Bloody Tears. Say the right song. These are my favorite ones, and I said the wrong name. Alright, so that's what that sounds like. Alright, we're going to reset it. Okay, so 3 is the that's the Sound Canvas 55. The SC55 is a Sound Canvas 55, which is the Roland Sound Canvas. It's a general MIDI, which came out after the MT-32. They sort of standardizes the MIDI stuff to general. It's actually a standard. So we are going to listen to that. It's not really how it's supposed to be, and it's GS, as you can see over in the thing. It's not really how it was designed to sound for this device. I would have to actually change it. Actually, I will change it. It's not going to sound correct if I do that. So let's go down here. Let's go MT-32 Pi. Let's change this to FluidSynth because that's going to be the closest. All right, so we're going to do FluidSynth, and we're going to hit, well, 3 is already selected, but we're going to hit 3 and listen to that. I think it didn't sound that bad before when I didn't configure the FluidSynth, but we will compare. Does sound a little different. Music sounds a lot different here. All right, so we're gonna go. I'm gonna hear Bloody Tears. A lot more orchestral sounding. A little bit quieter, but you know, you can adjust that. So a little different sounding. All right. So let's do this. Let's go back. Let us not reboot. Let's reset this. And while it's resetting, we're going to go in and change MT-32 Pi back to its sort of normal munt. Back. And we are going to choose 2 because that is the proper option for the MT-32. I think it sounds probably the best. It all depends on what it was composed for, really. Here we go. Very nice, very smooth. It's not CD sound, you know, but it's an artifact of the time, and I think it's nice. So depends on, you know, what you prefer, what you like, what you want to listen to. But I think, you know, it was designed for this game here. All right, let's go get killed so we can hear the fat. All right, now I'm just gonna do a quick reset. Whoops, not reset. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to reboot. Reboot. Just to go back to this, to our nice Castlevania wallpaper for the on the Sharp X68000. Very appropriate for what we just did, and I don't know that there's anything else I can teach you or help or show you with this. There's probably things I forgot. There's probably things I overstated, and so on. But hopefully this has been helpful for you. There's the proper screen there. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this has been helpful for you, or enjoyable, or useful, or you know someone you can send it to, whatever. I very much appreciate it. And I hope to see you on another video. Take care.